My boyfriend told his mom I wasn't wife material, so I watched him come crawling back when I stopped acting like one. I found out through a text he sent to his brother that he accidentally forwarded to me. Mom's right. She's too independent. I need someone who'll actually put me first. We'd been together 2 years. I worked as a project manager while somehow also being his personal assistant, chef, maid, and social coordinator. That night, I didn't say anything, just started changing my behavior. First, I stopped cooking. He came home to an empty kitchen and me eating takeout. "Where's dinner?" he asked. "I already ate," I said. "There's eggs in the fridge." Next, I stopped doing his laundry. By week 2, he was re-wearing dirty shirts. "Babe, can you throw in a load?" "I'm only doing mine now," I replied. "You're 29. Figure it out." I stopped cleaning up after him, stopped planning his family's birthday gifts, stopped reminding him about appointments, stopped being available whenever he wanted attention. "Why are you being like this?" he kept asking. "Like what?" "I'm just busy with work." His mom called 2 weeks in, concerned. Apparently, he'd been complaining to her that I'd changed, that I wasn't being supportive anymore. She wanted to have coffee with me to discuss our relationship. I agreed to meet her. She arrived with a whole speech prepared about compromise and traditional values. I let her talk for 10 minutes before sliding my phone across the table. On the screen was the text he'd sent his brother, and several others I'd found after that. Comments about how I was good for now but not the marrying type, how his mom had been pushing him to find someone more domestic. His mom went silent, reading through everything. "I've been doing everything for him," I said quietly. "Cooking, cleaning, managing his entire life while working 50 hours a week. And apparently, that still wasn't enough to be wife material." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I didn't know he felt this way. I never meant, you told him I was too independent." She flinched. "I worried you didn't need him, but I see now that needing someone and doing everything for them are different things." She apologized, actually apologized. Then told me her own story about her marriage and what she wished she'd done differently. Meanwhile, her son was falling apart. He'd called her crying about how the apartment was a disaster, and he couldn't keep up. How he'd been late to work 3 times because no one reminded him. How he'd missed his dad's birthday entirely, because I'd always handled that. "He's asking me for advice on how to win you back," his mom said. "What did you tell him?" "That he doesn't deserve you. Not unless he fundamentally changes." I smiled. It felt good to hear. 2 days later, he showed up at my office with flowers and a speech about how he'd realized what he'd lost, how he wanted to go to therapy, learn to be self-sufficient, prove he could be better. "I love you," he said desperately. "Please give me another chance." Here's what he didn't know. During those 2 weeks of watching him struggle, I'd gone on 3 dates with a guy from my gym, someone who had his life together, who cooked for me on our second date, who thought my career ambition was attractive, not threatening. "I appreciate this," I told my boyfriend, "but I've moved on." "To what?" "To someone who already knows how to be a partner, not someone I have to train." His face crumpled. "Your mom has my number if you need to talk to someone about how you're feeling," I added. "She's been surprisingly supportive." I walked back into my office building, leaving him standing there with his wilting flowers. That weekend, his mom texted me. "Dinner next week? I'm meeting your new boyfriend and I want to make sure he's good enough for you." I laughed and agreed. Turns out the best thing I ever did for my relationship with his mom was break up with her son. But here's what nobody expected to happen next. 3 months after I started dating Ryan, my ex showed up at my apartment at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. He was drunk, crying, and holding what looked like a journal. "I need you to read this." He slurred through the door. "Please, just 5 minutes." I opened the door but kept the chain on. Ryan was in the shower, which was probably for the best. "You need to leave. I've been in therapy," he said, waving the journal. 3 times a week. "I wrote down everything I did wrong, everything I took from you. Please, just read it." His eyes were bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Despite everything, I felt a pang of concern. "Send it to me," I said. "But I'm not promising anything." "No," he insisted, his voice rising. "You need to read it now, while I'm here, so I can explain." That's when Ryan appeared behind me, towel around his waist, water still dripping from his hair. "Is there a problem?" My ex's face went from desperate to furious in seconds. "This is him? The guy from the gym?" "You need to go," Ryan said calmly, but his hand was on my shoulder, protective. "You don't know what we had," my ex spat. "You don't know her like I do." "I know she does her own laundry," Ryan replied. "Now leave before I call the police." My ex threw the journal at the door and stormed off. I called his mom the next morning. She picked up on the first ring. "He showed up at my place last night, drunk." She sighed heavily. "I was afraid of that. He's been obsessing over this therapy, convinced if he just changes enough, you'll take him back. That's not how this works." "I know. I've told him that. His dad's told him that. But he won't listen." She paused. "Can I be honest with you?" "Of course. He's starting to scare me. He's lost weight. He's not sleeping. He got written up at work for missing deadlines. Yesterday, I found him sitting in his car outside your office building for 3 hours. My stomach dropped. He's stalking me? I don't know if I'd call it that yet, but I'm worried it could head that direction if someone doesn't intervene." I spent the next week looking over my shoulder. Then his brother called me. We'd always gotten along during the relationship, and he'd apologized after the breakup for his brother's behavior. "He's checking himself into a facility," he said. "Inpatient treatment for depression and obsessive behaviors." "Good," I said, and meant it. "But there's something you should know. Mom found something in his apartment. A box of your things, not stuff you left behind, stuff he'd taken, your old work badge that you thought you'd lost, photos from your phone that he'd printed, a shirt you'd been looking for." I felt sick. How long has he been doing this? Probably the whole relationship. Maybe before. We're all kind of freaking out right now because we're realizing we never really knew him. I filed a restraining order that afternoon. His mom supported it, even testified on my behalf about his deteriorating mental state and the box of my belongings. The judge granted it immediately. 2 months later, I got a letter from his therapist. He'd authorized her to contact me. "I want to be clear that I'm not asking you to forgive him or have any contact with him," she wrote. "But I thought you should know that his treatment has revealed a pattern of obsessive attachment that predates your relationship. He's being properly medicated now and taking this seriously. He's asked me to tell you he understands why you need boundaries and that he won't violate the restraining order." I showed Ryan the letter. We were in his kitchen, and he was teaching me how to make pasta from scratch. "How do you feel about it?" he asked, not looking up from the dough. Relieved? Sad? I don't know. Part of me wonders if I missed signs. Don't do that to yourself. Manipulative people are good at hiding who they are. He looked up at me then. "You're safe now. That's what matters." The restraining order was set to expire after a year. I didn't renew it. Not because I forgave him, but because by then, I'd moved in with Ryan and changed jobs. My ex couldn't find me even if he wanted to. His mom and I still had lunch once a month. She'd become something like a friend, a mentor even. She told me stories about her own marriage, the red flags she'd ignored, the years she'd spent being someone's emotional support animal instead of a partner. "My husband was different from my son," she said one afternoon over salad. "He didn't need me to mother him, but he needed me to shrink myself, to make him feel like the smart one, the successful one." "You have 2 PhDs, I pointed out. She smiled sadly. "Which I got after he died. I spent 35 years pretending to be less than I was because that's what good wives did in my generation. Do you regret it?" "Every single day. That's why I pushed my son to find someone domestic. I thought I was protecting him from feeling inadequate. Instead, I taught him that women exist to serve men." She set down her fork. "I'm glad you left him. I'm glad you showed me what I'd been perpetuating." 6 months after that conversation, she filed for divorce from her husband, my ex's dad. Apparently, my ex's issues with women hadn't come from nowhere. His dad had been having affairs for years, and she'd look the other way because that's what you did. But watching her son's breakdown had triggered something in her. "I enabled both of them," she told me over coffee the day her divorce was finalized. "I taught my son that women would always be there to clean up his messes because I always cleaned up his father's messes." She looked younger somehow. "Free. I'm 62 years old and I'm finally going to find out who I am without a man defining me." She started a blog about women over 60 reclaiming their lives. It went viral within weeks. She got a book deal, started speaking at conferences, became this whole inspiration for women leaving late-life marriages. Meanwhile, my ex's dad was not handling the divorce well. He'd assumed she'd never actually leave. When she took half of everything and moved into her own condo, he started calling me. "You did this," he said during one particularly nasty voicemail. "You poisoned my wife against our family." I blocked his number, but then he showed up at my new office. Security had to escort him out. His ex-wife got another restraining order, this one protecting both of us. "Like father, like son," she said grimly. I should have seen it coming. A year into my relationship with Ryan, he proposed. We were hiking, something I'd never done with my ex because he'd never wanted to. Ryan had packed a picnic, and at the summit, with the whole valley spread below us, he got down on one knee. "I've watched you reclaim yourself this past year," he said. "I've watched you remember that you're whole without someone else. I'm not asking you to complete me or to fix me or to manage my life. I'm asking if you want to build something together, as equals." I said yes. We planned the wedding for 8 months later. His mom offered to help, but in a way that actually meant helping, not taking over. She'd learned boundaries too. My ex's mom asked if she could come to the wedding. "I know it might be weird," she said, "but you've become important to me, and I'd like to be there for this." I thought about it for a week. Then I invited her, not as my ex's mom, but as someone who'd helped me understand that breaking cycles mattered more than keeping peace. The wedding was small, 50 people. Ryan's family, my family, close friends, and her. My ex's brother came too, having apologized profusely for his brother's behavior, and having done his own therapy to understand how he'd enabled it. My ex wasn't invited, obviously. The restraining order had expired, but he'd moved to another state for a fresh start. Last I'd heard from his brother, he was doing better, dating someone casually, actually doing his own laundry. During the reception, his mom found me by the dessert table. "Thank you for letting me be here," she said. "Thank you for teaching me what I should have learned 40 years ago." "What's that?" "That love isn't servitude. That partnership isn't parenting. That a strong woman isn't a threat to a secure man." She hugged me. "I'm sorry I failed you both. You didn't fail me. You learned. That's what matters." 2 years into our marriage, Ryan and I bought a house. I'd gotten promoted to senior project manager. He'd started his own business. We split everything equally. Chores, finances, decisions, all of it. One Saturday, while we were painting the nursery, yes, we were having a baby, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello? It's me? My ex." His voice sounded different, older somehow. "I know I shouldn't be calling. I know we haven't talked in 3 years. But I needed to tell you something, and then I'll never contact you again." I put the phone on speaker so Ryan could hear. "I'm getting married," my ex continued, "to someone I met in group therapy. And I realized I never really apologized, not for the right things." "You don't need to." "Yes, I do. I spent our entire relationship seeing you as someone to fix me, someone to manage my life because I was too lazy or too entitled to do it myself. I blamed you for having boundaries. I stalked you when you tried to leave. I made my mental health your responsibility." He took a shaky breath. "My fiancé made me realize something. She told me that before she'd marry me, I needed to make amends with the people I'd hurt. Not for forgiveness, just for accountability." "Okay," I said carefully. "I'm sorry I wasted 2 years of your life. I'm sorry I made you feel like independence was a flaw. I'm sorry I let my mom's toxic expectations shape how I treated you. And I'm sorry for everything that came after." There was a long pause. "I'm happy now," I said finally. "I'm married. We're having a baby. I've built the life I wanted." "Good. That's good." He sounded like he meant it. That's all I wanted to say. I hope you have a good life. He hung up. Ryan set down his paint roller and pulled me close. How do you feel? Relieved? I think he actually meant it. His mom would be proud. Yeah, she would. His mom had actually been the first person we'd told about the pregnancy. She'd cried and told us she was honored. She'd also apologized again for not being a better mother-in-law to me when I was with her son, though I'd told her repeatedly that she'd more than made up for it. The baby came 7 months later, a girl. We named her after my grandmother. His mom, my former almost mother-in-law, became the most devoted grandmother figure I could have imagined. She'd show up with books and wooden toys, nothing plastic or gender stereotyped. I'm raising her to know her worth, she'd say, rocking our daughter. Something I failed to do with my own son. You didn't fail. You learned. Same thing you told me at your wedding. I'm choosing to believe you. Our daughter was 6 months old when my ex's brother called. He died, he said without preamble. My brother. Car accident last week. I sat down hard on the couch. What? He and his fiancée were driving back from a wedding venue tour. Drunk driver ran a red light. She survived. He didn't. I didn't know what to feel. Sad, relieved, guilty for feeling relieved. The funeral is on Saturday, he continued. Mom wanted you to know. She's not expecting you to come, but she wanted you to know. I talked to Ryan that night. I don't think I should go, I said, but I feel like I should want to go. Why? Because we spent 2 years together, because he was trying to change, because his mom has become family. None of those are reasons you owe him anything, even in death. He was right. I didn't go to the funeral, but I sent flowers to his mom with a note. I'm sorry for your loss. Call me if you need anything. She called 2 days later. Thank you for the flowers. And for not coming. What? The funeral was full of people who barely knew him. Old friends who hadn't seen him in years. Co-workers who found out on Facebook. Distant relatives looking for drama. You didn't owe him your grief. I appreciated that you recognized that. She paused. Can I come see the baby this week? I need to hold something alive and new. Of course. She came over that Thursday with a photo album. I found these in his apartment when we were cleaning it out. Pictures of you two? I thought you might want them, or might want to burn them. Either way. I flipped through the album. There we were, younger, smiling, before everything fell apart. I looked happy in these photos, but I couldn't remember feeling happy. I'm keeping one, I decided. The one from the art museum, to remember who I was before I learned to have boundaries. And the rest? I'm burning them? That weekend, Ryan and I made a fire pit in our backyard. I fed the photos into the flames one by one while our daughter slept in her carrier next to us. This is weird, right? I asked. Burning photos of your wife's ex? Little bit, Ryan admitted, but also kind of cathartic to watch. We laughed. It felt good to laugh about it. His mom stopped by the next day with homemade soup, something she'd started doing since the baby was born. I saw the fire pit, she said. Burn the photos? Most of them. Good. You're not erasing history. You're just choosing what to carry forward. She held our daughter while I ate the soup. Can I tell you something? Always. I used to think my biggest regret would be staying in my marriage so long, but actually, my biggest regret is that I raised a son who made you feel like you had to shrink yourself. I'm glad I get to help raise your daughter differently. You didn't raise him alone. His dad was there too. Exactly. And his dad taught him that women exist to serve. I taught him that love means sacrifice, but I didn't teach him that sacrifice goes both ways. She kissed our daughter's forehead. This little one is going to know she's enough, just as she is. 3 years after my ex's death, his brother got engaged. He called to invite us to the wedding. I know it's been a while since we talked, he said, but you were family once, and you're still close to Mom. It would mean a lot if you came. We went. It was a beautiful wedding. Nothing like the one my ex and I might have had. His brother's fiancée was confident, loud, opinionated, everything my ex had found threatening in me. Watching them together, I could see the difference. They challenged each other, pushed each other, neither one shrinking to make the other feel bigger. His mom gave a toast that made everyone cry. I spent most of my life believing that love meant accommodating. That partnership meant one person leading and one person following. It took losing my marriage and almost losing my son to learn that real love is two whole people choosing to walk side by side. She looked at me across the room. I learned that from someone brave enough to walk away, and I'm grateful every day that she didn't stay. After the wedding, she pulled me aside. I have something to tell you. What? I'm seeing someone. A woman, actually, from my divorce support group. I hugged her. That's wonderful. I think I always knew I wasn't straight, but in my generation, in my family, you didn't explore that. You married a man and had children, and that was your life. She smiled, looking younger than I'd ever seen her. I'm 67 years old, and I'm finally dating someone who sees me as an equal. Does your son know? Your surviving son? I told him last week. He cried and said he was happy for me. Then he apologized for every homophobic joke he'd made growing up. She laughed. We're all works in progress. Our daughter was 3 when she asked about her grandmother. Not Ryan's mom, who she saw regularly, but this other grandmother who came over with soup and presents. Is she your mommy? She asked me one night at bedtime. No, sweetie, she's someone who became my friend, but she's old like a grandma. She is. And if you want to call her grandma, I think she'd like that. The next time she visited, our daughter ran to the door yelling, Grandma, and her face lit up like the sun. Can I? She asked me quietly. Can I really? You already are. She cried while reading our daughter a bedtime story that night. Happy tears, she assured us, the kind that come from unexpected second chances. Last month, our daughter started kindergarten. I walked her to class that first day, and I saw other moms who looked frazzled, managing their partners' schedules along with their kids' schedules along with their own. And I was grateful. Grateful I'd learned to walk away. Grateful I'd found someone who saw partnership as collaboration, not delegation. Grateful I'd broken a cycle before I could pass it on. That night, Ryan and I sat on our back porch after our daughter was asleep. Do you ever think about him? He asked. Your ex? Sometimes. Usually when I see couples where one person is drowning and doesn't know it. You saved yourself, you know. Not me. Not his mom. You. I know, but you made it easier to stay saved. He kissed my forehead. That's what partnership's for. Not to complete each other. Just to make the hard stuff easier. My phone buzzed. A text from my ex's mom. She'd sent a photo of herself and her girlfriend at Pride, both of them wearing rainbow flags like capes, both of them grinning. Living my truth at 68. The caption read, "Never too late." I showed Ryan the photo. Think our daughter will grow up knowing she can be herself, with you as her mom, and that woman as her grandma? Yeah, I think she'll know. I thought about the girl I'd been 5 years ago. The one who cooked and cleaned and managed a grown man's life while working 50 hours a week. The one who thought independence was a flaw to be corrected. That girl would have never believed she'd end up here, happy, free, with a partner who saw her strength as an asset, not a threat, with a daughter who'd never know what it feels like to shrink, with a found family that chose growth over comfort. I'd lost a boyfriend, gained a life, fair trade. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my ex's brother. The subject line read, Mom's book. I opened it over coffee while Ryan made pancakes and our daughter colored at the kitchen table. Hey, the email started. Mom finally finished her book. Her publisher wants to release it next spring. She asked me to send you the dedication. She wants your permission before it goes to print. Attached was a PDF of the dedication page. It read, "To the young woman who taught me that it's never too late to unlearn the lies we tell ourselves about love. You showed me that boundaries aren't walls, they're foundations. That walking away isn't giving up, it's waking up. This book exists because you were brave enough to leave, and because you were gracious enough to stay in my life after. Thank you for giving me a second chance to get it right." I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. "What is it?" Ryan asked, sliding pancakes onto plates. I showed him. "Wow," he said softly. "Are you going to let her use it?" Yeah, I am. I wrote back immediately, giving my permission and telling her how proud I was. She called me within minutes. "I was so nervous you'd say no," she said, her voice shaking. "Why would I say no? It's beautiful. Because I'm essentially admitting to the world that I raised a man who hurt you, that I contributed to that hurt. It's not a good look for me. It's an honest look. That's more important." She was quiet for a moment. "The publisher wants me to do interviews, a book tour. They think this message about late life awakening and unlearning toxic patterns will resonate. It will. You're proof that change is possible at any age." "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if people hate me? What if they say I'm a terrible mother?" "Some people will, but more people will see themselves in your story. The women who stayed too long, the mothers who accidentally taught their sons that women exist to serve, the people who are trying to do better but don't know how." "You really think so?" "I know so." The book came out the following spring. She titled it Unlearning Everything, A Mother's Confession. Within 2 weeks, it hit the bestseller list. Within a month, she was doing national interviews. I watched her on a morning show, talking about how she'd realized too late that she'd been teaching her sons that emotional labor wasn't real labor, how she'd modeled martyrdom and called it love. The host asked her about me. "The woman you dedicated the book to, is she okay with you sharing her story?" "I've changed identifying details to protect her privacy," she said carefully. "But yes, she approved every word that mentioned her. She's happily married now, with a beautiful daughter. She's living proof that leaving can save your life." "And your son, the one who she dated?" Her face fell. "He passed away a few years ago. But before he died, he'd started doing the work. He'd started unlearning the patterns I'd taught him. I like to think he would have become someone different, someone better." "Do you blame yourself for his struggles?" "I blame a system that raises boys to expect service and girls to provide it. I blame a culture that tells mothers their job is to sacrifice everything. I blame myself for not questioning it sooner, but blame doesn't change anything. Action does." The interview went viral. Millions of views. Thousands of comments from women who saw their own lives reflected in her words. She started getting speaking requests from universities, corporations, and women's organizations. "I can't keep up with all of this," she told me over lunch one day. "I'm 68. I thought I'd be retired and traveling with my girlfriend. Instead, I'm accidentally a feminist icon." "Accidentally?" "I didn't set out to be a voice for change. I just wanted to apologize to you in book form. And now you're helping thousands of other women apologize to themselves." She smiled. "When you put it that way, I guess I can handle a few more speaking engagements." Our daughter was 4 when she asked why Grandma, the one who wasn't Ryan's mom, had a girlfriend instead of a grandpa. "Because she loves her," I said simply. "Like Daddy loves you?" "Exactly like that. Love is love, no matter who it's between." "Okay." And she went back to her blocks. The question answered as easily as if she'd asked why the sky was blue. I thought about how different my own childhood had been, how I'd grown up seeing love as performance, as transaction, as something women gave and men took. "You know what's wild?" I said to Ryan that night. "What?" "My daughter will grow up thinking relationships should be equal. She'll grow up thinking independence is normal. She'll grow up never knowing what I had to unlearn. That's the whole point, isn't it? Each generation getting to start from a better place?" "Yeah, but it's still surreal to see." My ex's brother called a few weeks later with unexpected news. "Remember how my brother had that journal? The one he tried to give you the night he showed up drunk?" "Vaguely. I found it in his things. I've been reading through it." He paused. "Do you want to know what was in it?" I thought about it. "Did I?" "Tell me." "It was an apology. A real one. He'd written down every single thing he'd done wrong in your relationship. Not to guilt you or manipulate you, just to see it all on paper. To force himself to reckon with it." He cleared his throat. The last entry was from the day before he died. It said, "I hope she never reads this. I hope she's forgotten about me entirely. I hope she's built a life where men like me are just cautionary tales. That's what I deserve to be." I didn't know what to say. I thought you should know that he got it. In the end, he really got it. After we hung up, I told Ryan about the journal. "Do you want to read it?" he asked. "No, I don't need his apology. I made my peace years ago." "Good." But that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About a man who'd hurt me finally understanding the weight of what he'd done. About how death had come for him before he could fully become whoever he was trying to be. About how unfair that was, and also how it didn't change anything. I still made the right choice. He still did the wrong thing. His growth, or lack of it, didn't change the facts. The next morning, I drove to his grave for the first time. It was in a cemetery about 30 minutes from our house. His mom had mentioned it once, but I'd never felt the need to visit. Until now. The headstone was simple. His name, his dates. A quote I didn't recognize. I stood there for a long time, trying to figure out what to say. "I don't forgive you," I said finally. "I don't think I ever will. Not for the manipulation, not for the stalking, not for making me feel like I was crazy for wanting basic respect." The wind rustled through the trees. "But I understand you now. I understand that you were broken in ways that weren't entirely your fault. That your mom and your dad taught you to be who you were. That you were trying to change when you ran out of time." I crouched down, touching the grass beside his grave. "Your mom is doing incredible things. Your brother got engaged to someone who challenges him in the best ways. And I have a daughter who will never date someone like you because she'll know what she deserves." I stood up. "That's your legacy, not the man you were. But the changes that came because I left. The cycles that broke because I refused to be part of them anymore. You're a cautionary tale, like you said. And that matters too." I walked back to my car feeling lighter. Not forgiven, not reconciled, just finished. When I got home, our daughter was in the backyard with Ryan, helping him plant tomatoes. She saw me and came running, dirt on her face, joy in her eyes. "Mommy, Daddy says I can have my own garden." "Your own garden? With flowers and vegetables and everything." She grabbed my hand. "Come see." I let her pull me toward the freshly turned earth, toward Ryan's smile, toward this life we'd built together. Equal, balanced, whole. That night, after our daughter was asleep, I got a message from my ex's mom. My girlfriend proposed. Attached was a photo of her hand with a simple silver ring. "Congratulations." I called her immediately. "Tell me everything." "We were at the beach," she said, her voice giddy like a teenager's, "walking at sunset. And she just dropped to one knee in the sand and said, 'I know we're too old for this to matter legally in some people's eyes, but I want you to know you're my forever person.' That's beautiful. I'm 68 years old and getting married for the second time. To a woman. Can you believe it?" "Yes, I absolutely can. I want you to be there at the wedding. You and Ryan and your daughter, your family, will be there." The wedding was 3 months later, a small ceremony on the beach with 30 people. Our daughter was the flower girl, taking her job very seriously, dropping petals in perfect intervals. My ex's brother walked his mom down the aisle, tears streaming down his face. His fiancée sobbed through the entire ceremony, watching her marry the love of her life, seeing her claim happiness at an age when many people have given up on it. I felt something shift. The last piece of resentment I'd been carrying about my ex, about those 2 wasted years, about everything that had happened, dissolved, because none of it had been wasted after all. Those 2 years had led me here, to this family, to this understanding, to this proof that it's never too late to start over. At the reception, she pulled me aside. "I have something for you." She handed me a small box. Inside was a silver bracelet with an inscription. "She who walks away, walks toward." "It's from my book," she explained, "but it's really from you, from your courage." I didn't feel courageous. I felt desperate. Courage and desperation look the same in the moment. It's only hindsight that knows the difference. I put on the bracelet. "Thank you for everything. Thank you for not giving up on me, for letting me be part of your life even after you left my son, for teaching me that family is who shows up, not who shares blood." We hugged, and I thought about all the ways love can surprise you. How the mother of the man who hurt me had become one of my closest friends. How trauma can transform into wisdom if you're willing to do the work. How endings can be beginnings if you're brave enough to walk through the door. That night, tucking our daughter into bed, she asked me, "Mommy, why did Grandma marry Grandma instead of Grandpa?" Because she fell in love with Grandma. And because she learned that it's okay to be yourself, even if it takes you a long time to figure out who that is. When did you figure out who you are? I thought about the girl who'd cooked and cleaned and shrunk herself, about the woman who'd walked away, about the mother I'd become. "I'm still figuring it out, sweetheart. That's the secret. We're all always figuring it out." She seemed satisfied with that answer and drifted off to sleep. Ryan was waiting for me in our bedroom. "Long day. Long life," I corrected, "but a good one. No regrets?" "About leaving him? Never. About the pain it took to get here? Sometimes. But pain that leads to growth isn't wasted." He pulled me close. "I love who you are, the person who fought to become herself. I love who you let me be, the person who doesn't have to fight anymore." We fell asleep like that, tangled together, 2 whole people who'd chosen each other. Not because we needed someone to complete us, but because we wanted someone to walk beside us. 2 months later, I got a Facebook message from a woman I didn't know. "You don't know me," it started, "but I read your mother-in-law's book. Well, your former mother-in-law. I read the dedication and I tracked you down because I needed to thank you." "Thank me?" "I've been in a relationship for 4 years where I do everything. Cooking, cleaning, managing his whole life. I work full-time and somehow I'm also his mother. I've been telling myself it's fine. That's just how relationships work, that I'm being supportive." She'd sent screenshots of text messages between her and her boyfriend. They looked eerily familiar. "Mom's right. She's too needy with her own life. I need someone who'll actually prioritize me." Almost word for word what my ex had written. "I'm leaving him tonight," she continued. "I just packed my stuff while he's at work. I'm done being someone's unpaid employee. And I wanted you to know that your story saved me, not just from him, from years of this." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I wrote back, "You saved yourself. You're the one who chose to walk away. But I'm glad my story helped. You deserve a partnership, not a job." She responded immediately. "Can I ask you something? Did it get easier after you left?" "Yes and no." The The leaving was easy once I decided, but watching him fall apart was hard. Seeing the aftermath was hard. Waiting to see if I'd made the right choice was hard. And did you make the right choice? I'm married to someone who does his own laundry. I have a daughter who will never think independence is a flaw. I have a life that's mine. So yes, absolutely, yes. Over the next few months, I got more messages. Women who'd read the book, women who'd seen her interviews, women who were realizing they'd been playing the role of mother to grown men who should have been partners. I answered every single one. Some left their relationships. Some stayed and fought for change. Some were still deciding. But all of them were waking up. All of them were questioning the script they'd been handed. One woman sent me a photo of her and her boyfriend in a cooking class. He's learning, she wrote. Actually learning, not just watching me and then forgetting. I gave him an ultimatum and he chose to change. I'm cautiously hopeful. Another sent me screenshots of couples' therapy sessions. The therapist told him point blank that emotional labor is real labor, that I'm not his manager. He cried. But then he bought a planner and started handling his own shit. Not every story had a happy ending. Some women left and faced stalking, like I had. Some left and faced financial ruin. Some left and lost their entire social circles. But even those women thanked me. At least now I know I'm not crazy, one wrote. At least now I know my exhaustion was real. My ex's mom started a nonprofit. It was called Walk Away, Walk Toward, based on the inscription she'd given me. It provided resources for women leaving unhealthy relationships, legal support, financial planning, therapy referrals, everything I wish I'd had. I want to use my book money for something that matters, she told me. I want other women to have what you didn't have, a safety net. The organization grew quickly. Within a year, they'd helped 300 women leave. Within 2 years, they'd opened 3 shelters. She was featured in magazines, on podcasts, on news programs. Always, she mentioned me. The woman who taught me everything, she'd say. The woman who was brave enough to walk away from my son. One interviewer asked her, "Do you think your son would be proud of this work?" She paused, visibly emotional. I think my son was a casualty of a sick system. He was taught to expect service and call it love. If he'd lived, if he'd had more time, maybe he would have finished unlearning those lessons. Maybe he would have become an ally, but he didn't get that chance. So I'm doing this work in his name, to make sure other men don't become what he was, to make sure other women don't suffer what his girlfriend suffered. Our daughter was 5 when she announced she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. Not just any teacher, she clarified. A teacher who teaches boys to be nice. Boys are already nice, I said carefully. Some are, she agreed. But Tommy pushed Emma at recess and said girls can't play soccer. I want to teach boys that girls can do anything. I exchanged a look with Ryan. I think that's a great goal, he said. But you know what? Girls can teach girls to stand up for themselves too. And grown-ups need to teach boys that girls aren't there to be pushed around. Like you teach me, Daddy? Exactly like that. She seemed satisfied and went back to her drawing. She was sketching a soccer field with girls and boys playing together. Later that night, after she was asleep, Ryan said, "She's going to be okay, right? In this world? More than okay. She's going to be the kind of person who doesn't tolerate bullshit, who knows her worth, who won't settle. Because of you. Because of all of us. Me, you, her grandmas, everyone who's shown her what healthy love looks like." The next week, my ex's mom called with big news. I've been offered a position at a university, teaching a course on gender roles and relationship dynamics. That's incredible. It means moving across the country. To California. I'd be 2,000 miles away. My heart sank. Oh, but, she continued quickly, my girlfriend and I talked about it. We decided we want to be closer to you and Ryan and our granddaughter. So I turned it down. You can't do that. This is your dream. Being close to family is my dream. I already missed raising one generation properly. I'm not missing this one. She moved to our city 3 months later. She and her wife, they'd made it legal the month after I last wrote about them. Bought a house 10 minutes from ours. Our daughter was ecstatic to have both grandmas nearby. They'd have sleepovers at their house, movie nights, baking days. She was learning that love comes in all forms. That family is chosen. That grandma and grandma made just as much sense as grandma and grandpa. On our daughter's 6th birthday, we had a big party in our backyard. Both sets of grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends from school, neighbors, watching everyone together, watching this family we'd built from broken pieces. I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. My ex's brother found me by the cake table. I think about him a lot on days like this, he said, wondering what his life would have looked like if he'd figured it out sooner. Me too. Do you ever regret leaving him? Not staying to help him change? I thought about it honestly. No, it wasn't my job to fix him. It was my job to save myself. Those are 2 different things. Mom says that a lot now, in her speeches. That women aren't rehabilitation centers for broken men. She's right. He smiled. You know what's funny? I used to think you broke my brother. When you left, I blamed you for his downward spiral. Now I realize you freed him. You gave him the chance to see himself clearly. That's a gift, even if he couldn't handle it. He was trying, at the end. Yeah, he was. We stood there together, honoring a ghost. Not the man he'd been. Not even the man he'd almost become. Just the space where he'd existed, and what had grown from his absence. The party continued around us. Ryan was teaching kids how to kick a soccer ball. His mom was taking photos with her ancient camera. My ex's mom and her wife were setting up a craft table. This was my life now. Messy and imperfect and built on the rubble of what came before. But mine. Finally, completely mine. That night, after everyone had left and our daughter was asleep, I found Ryan cleaning up the yard. Leave it, I said. We'll do it tomorrow. Together? Together. We went inside and sat on the couch, exhausted and happy. Do you ever think about alternate timelines? I asked. Like what would have happened if you'd stayed with him? Sometimes. And I'm grateful every time that I didn't. That I walked away. That I found you. Best decision you ever made. Second best. I corrected. The first best was realizing I deserved better. He pulled me close. We sat there in the quiet, 2 Two people who'd found each other because we'd both learned to be whole alone first. My phone buzzed. Another message from a stranger. I read the book. I'm leaving tomorrow. Thank you for showing me it was possible. I showed Ryan. How many is that now? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. I stopped counting. You started something. His mom started something. I just lived my truth. Same thing. Maybe it was. Maybe refusing to shrink was radical. Maybe walking away was revolutionary. Maybe just being happy, just thriving, just existing as a whole person was the best revenge. Or not revenge. The best testimony. The best proof. The best offering to the women who'd come before me and the girls who'd come after. I thought about the girl I'd been, cooking dinner for a man who called me too independent. I thought about the woman I'd become, raising a daughter who'd never question her worth. That girl would have never believed this life was possible. But this woman knew better. This woman knew that anything was possible once you stopped asking permission and started taking up space. My daughter's laugh echoed from her bedroom, a dream maybe, or just joy escaping even in sleep. I squeezed Ryan's hand and thought, this is what walking away walks toward. Not perfection, not easy, just real, just whole, just exactly, precisely, beautifully enough.